Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Criteria. I'm James Majewski, sitting here, as usual, with Thomas Miris. Hey, Thomas.
Yo.
But sitting not as usual in Northern Virginia. Thomas and I are both out of New York for the holidays, visiting our families, and so we're calling in remotely. How's it going, Thomas?
Good, man. How are you?
Good,
I like
good.
your background there in, what is it called? Shy Guy Studios?
My younger brother, Brian, we call him Bry Guy. This is his studio. He's down here often with his band recording, and he's also got it primed and ready for Twitch streaming. So That's why I've got such a nice studio here. And you're in the estimable Trinity Communications offices, are you?
Yes, I'm in my dad's, Jeff Maris's office right here, and got all of our childhood books behind us on that shelf.
Very nice, very nice.
So, yeah, man, we're going to be doing something a little bit different today. And normally we do these long discussions of films from the Vatican film list. And today we're doing more like a review of a current film, which is something we're going to try to start doing a little more often. A shorter review. Let's call them a Bitesized Chunk. That's going to be the name of this new segment. It's time for a Bite-Sized Chunk.
Well, neither Thomas nor I is really a film critic. So
no.
the thoughts that we have, take them with a grain of salt. But what we're going to try to do is be just and charitable. And charitable. In general, I don't think we're ever going to offer a review of a film that we don't feel that we can recommend.
Yeah,
so,
I think so.
Even if there may be some criticisms,
unless it's just like morally, like if we did an episode about like the new Brideshead Revisited film that's coming out, it's just like disgusting.
Yeah.
In that case, we might, but just like if it's purely on an artistic level, I don't think we would probably bother.
Right.
I don't know. It probably depends on the case by case situation.
But certainly in this case, where we're talking about the new Christmas movie Fatman starring Mel Gibson, I think that we both can heartily recommend this film. I certainly enjoyed it. What about you, Thomas?
Yeah, I did enjoy it. People may have seen the trailer for this. It's a pretty intriguing and memorable trailer. Also somewhat ridiculous, and I'm sure intentionally so. Mel Gibson plays Santa. Santa is fending off an assassin who was sent by a young boy who is angry that he got coal, not in his stocking, but in his gift box from Santa.
Oh,
and
man.
So that's the basic. There's other aspects of the premise, like Santa is also taking a contract from the U.S. military because the normal subsidy that he gets from the U.S. government is not enough. That's not the most interesting part of the film, so I don't expect we'll be discussing that too much, except insofar as it gives us a chance to discuss Mel Gibson's performance. You're a big Mel Gibson fan, James, and you've talked to me before about some of the odd roles he's chosen, especially since his kind of comeback. Kind of, I don't know, what would you say, like post-apocalypto comeback?
Yeah, I think it was right around the release of Apocalypto that Mel Gibson got blacklisted by Hollywood, and it's really unfortunate because we've said it on this podcast before, but that movie is a masterpiece. It took many, many years for Mel Gibson's image to be rehabilitated in Hollywood. I'm not sure that it even has fully yet.
No, not really.
But now he is doing a string of films, and many of them have been action films. So famously, there was Get the Gringo. There was also Bloodfather. And then Dragged Over Concrete. My favorite of those is probably Bloodfather. I can't remember all of the details about it, so there may be some morally questionable things in there, but I don't think so. It's of course violent, but Mel Gibson plays a father who did some time in prison, reunited with a daughter of his, and it's kind of a redemption film.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so I think that across the board, really, in the film choices that Mel Gibson has been taking, perhaps even going all the way back to the very first film role that he was offered in the wake of the scandals, The Beaver. All of them have
so
to
this
do...
is more on the strange side, right? I haven't seen it, but...
The Beaver is definitely strange, but maybe no stranger than Fatman.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. It's like
right. Well, what
I'm some wacky roles too.
What I'm getting at is that Mel certainly seems to be interested in this character of the sort of father figure in need of redemption. And I think that that's kind of at work here in Fatman to some degree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's kind of an interesting, it's hard to nail down tonally, this film. I mean, I think it definitely comes off as like an dark action comedy in the trailer. The trailer, I think, gives a very accurate representation of what the movie is about, except I think that once you watch the full movie, it maybe takes itself a little more seriously than you would have expected.
Right.
But it does kind of veer all over the place tonally.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of this theme of Santa kind of needing a comeback is treated pretty seriously. That aspect of it is treated pretty seriously.
There are a few laugh out loud moments, and I'd say that pretty much all of them revolve around Mel Gibson and his just fantastic portrayal of this character. Mel Gibson's an excellent actor, and that's very much on display in this film. Another thing that's evident from the film, from the acting, the roles that he's taken in recent years, is that Mel's got a sense of humor, and that he doesn't take himself too seriously. And yet that doesn't inhibit him from fully investing into, the emotional reality and the circumstances of his characters, no matter how ridiculous. So there's one scene in particular when Santa has to tell a factory full of elves that they're ceasing their normal production of toys, at least for a few months, to begin subcontracting for the U.S. military. And there's just so much emotion in his voice. His announcement is so fraught.
Right.
And tears begin to well up in his eyes. And it's just like, whoa, this is amazing that an actor of this caliber could pull this off,
For me, the most interesting part of the film, and the one that I wish had been developed more, because I think basically in terms of plot elements, what you see in the trailer is what you get, basically, in the film, is the character of the hitman, the skinny man. He has a name, which is revealed at the end of the film, which I forget, but the skinny man is played by Walton Goggins, who is a really wonderful, delightful actor who I've seen in a major role in the past as the series villain on the excellent kind of modern Western show Justified, where he stars opposite Timothy Oliphant as his nemesis, basically. Childhood friend / nemesis throughout the entire series. And he has a way of playing these kind of wicked but charming villains. In this case, he's less charming, but you can still definitely feel this Walton Goggins charisma. I think coming through his performance, especially whenever he smiles, because he has this very distinctive toothy smile.
He's fantastic. He does a great job with his role, and you're right. He's eccentric and awkward, but also has a bit of swagger. And in fact, I think that his character belongs to and is based off this category of film villains that I think of, I most associate with the Coen brothers. So whether it's like Steve Buscemi in Fargo or Billy Bob Thornton in the Fargo film series, this kind of like kind of eccentric, stone
Javier
cold
Bardem's character, Anton Chigurh, in The Country for Old Men.
Strange, but also a stone cold killer. So that's very much where this character sits. And Walton Goggins does a really great job of towing that line between the dark, intense reality and the sort of absurd, comedic, humorous side. So,
but he's also a tragic figure, and so we can talk about both of these children essentially in this movie. We've got we've got this. Well, let me step back. Santa. One of the big reasons that Santa is kind of depressed and feeling like he's lost his sense of purpose is because the children of the world are behaving more and more badly. And, there's a bunch of things where he's listening to the news and he's hearing about, children pushing a bowling ball off an overpass and causing a pileup, or, kids setting their grandpa on fire or whatever. Just the horrible things you hear about occasionally on the news of, children doing something awful. And so this has got him bummed out. So in this film, he has to confront basically these two children who have both been given coal by him in the past. One is the character Billy, who is this rich, spoiled kid, spoiled materially, but not spoiled in love, because his mother is off. Maybe his parents are divorced, and his father is not home for Christmas. He's just off with a girlfriend in the Bahamas, we're told, and he is clearly very neglected by his parents, despite living in material comfort with servants and his grandmother. So he gets upset that he gets coal in his stocking. And this is after we see him torturing a fellow student who wins the science fair prize, and basically threatening her to make her say that she cheated so he'll get the first prize like he did last year.
Right.
And
so he hires a hitman who is now an adult who, as a child, received coal in his stockings from Santa.
He had an abusive childhood, and he has this hobby, besides being a hitman, of collecting toys that were made in Santa's workshop, of which he received only one small toy as a child, and has this kind of complex about these toys that he buys from people. He kind of has like a used toy buying business on the side, basically.
Well, it's not really a business so much as a collection. I think that it's a way for the director, for the writers to sort of totemize his resentment. So there's this sense in which he's going around purchasing children's dreams and their good childhood. He's putting a number on it, and then he possesses it, but also takes it away, and in doing so somehow destroys it. Destroys the gift. And so I think that his character, as with the young child who hires him, is motivated by envy, is motivated by resentment that's born of wounds that they received from their parents. And I think that that's part of what this film is interested in talking about. This feels like a very timely film because, not only is it sort of about this crisis of youth, but I think even more so it's about a crisis of institutions. So when we live at a time, especially in the West, where so many institutions that we've come to rely upon seem to be in utter, disarray. Santa Claus is kind of emblematic of that. And so it's the perfect story for a film, even though I don't find the US government side of it that interesting plot wise. Thematically for our time, it's interesting because it's basically, even though Santa isn't a villain, he is being made into a tool of the deep state or whatever in this film temporarily. So the idea that even Santa is forced to depend on, the benefices of the state, and then ultimately to do work for them in creating war machines. It feels very appropriate to the kind of critical levels of distrust for the government as well as other institutions, but also distrust for maybe the church in relation to the dealings that it has with the state, that are not always on the up and up. Because of course, at the end of the day, Santa Claus really stands in as a kind of proxy for God the Father. And
Right.
this, the story that we tell our children, he's making a list, he's checking it twice, he's going to find out if you're naughty or nice.
Yeah.
It's we're all destined to face judgment where nothing will be hidden. And
Right. Yeah, we see Santa kind of has I don't know if he can read hearts, but he basically knows everybody's history that he comes across.
Right. And but it's also clear that while Santa is ready to mete out reward and punishment, he's also a man full of compassion and mercy.
Right.
So I think that's probably where this film succeeds the most, is in articulating that there is no necessary conflict between justice and compassion. That, well, Thomas, when we were talking about this film before, you brought up how we live in this therapeutic age. And whenever we're faced with evil, our immediate impulse is to sort of psychologize it and understand, like, well, what made them this way? How did they come to make these decisions? And
so this film nods to that, but it ultimately sides on the side of one of the lessons Santa learns is that he needs to be more proactive and do more to evildoers than just put coal in their stocking.
Right.
So you can see this compassion that he has towards these kids. I mean, he knows their histories, but ultimately the film seems to be saying, simply the promise of reward for good behavior in a fallen world is not enough to motivate everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to have threat of punishment as well, which is a very, like, I don't know. It's interesting because, even among Catholics, you seem to have this idea that, like, well, shouldn't the reward of doing good be good enough, or why should you need threats of reward and punishment? Or
right.
This is a very common atheist, idea too.
Yeah.
Like, the idea, like disconnect with the idea of why, like, there should be a threat of hell.
It also seems to conceal an actual, like a false compassion. Yeah. This is something that I've reflected on a few times, especially surrounding the question of capital punishment. Now, obviously, as Catholics, there's some room for legitimate disagreement and difference of opinion on this matter. But certainly a lot of, in the secular liberal sphere, a lot of the voices that I see that are most, opposed to the death penalty, most self-righteous and indignant, are the same voices that are the most virulent in their support for abortion or in their attacks on the institution of the family. And the hypocrisy is just so, it's just
right.
So this seems to be born of precisely this over psychologizing of our fallen state of evil, that somehow, everybody is there, that their evil choices are not choices, that are somehow in the end reducible to social or external forces, which of course in that case there isn't any room for mercy, there isn't any room for compassion.
That's true.
So
good point.
So
this is,
go ahead.
This is something that Fulton Sheen talked about. He bemoaned this because this loss of the sense of sin is very much prevalent among Catholics, and this is something that Fulton Sheen talked about. Is he bemoaned this tendency? I think he was speaking in the 60s or maybe the early 70s. I forget when he died, but I guess early 70s. So he was talking about this tendency to have more pity on the mugger than the person who is mugged. To sort of like to extend all of our pity to, the
perpetrator,
the junkie, the degenerate, the homosexual. I think these are some of the things that he mentioned, and kind of to the point where like normality itself becomes like marginalized, and we can certainly see that now, where the very concept of normality, to hit on something I was just talking about in my last Catholic Culture podcast episode, the very concept of normality becomes seen as oppressive in itself, no matter who you include or don't include in that. So I think this is an interesting kind of counter to that. Is it a Christian movie? I wouldn't really say so. But it does have a somewhat countercultural quality in its embrace of the idea of just punishment for one's crimes.
Yeah. So while listeners or viewers shouldn't expect like a diehard Santa movie, this isn't an action-packed movie from front to back. Nevertheless, there is a satisfying payoff at the end with Mel Gibson and his portrayal of this badass Santa.
Yeah. I would have liked a little more development with the character of the assassin.
Definitely.
But because I thought he was well set up as a tragic villain. But,
Right.
I think that your enjoyment of this film is more just going to depend on whether this is your sort of thing, generally speaking.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a movie about Santa that's violent and has some cuss words in it. Not really pervasive, I would say. But it's dark. And so I think that the people who I think if you just watch the trailer, you'll kind of get an idea of, okay, is this something I have any interest in watching? But if you watch the trailer and just needed someone to push you over the edge and say, is this actually going to be a decent movie? I would say yes.
Yeah, a lot of fun. All
right, so I guess have a Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yep, and a Happy New Year.